This live presentation was produced in Ashland, Oregon by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. RVML relies on the support of our volunteers, members, and donors to organize and present these programs. For more information about this presentation, or to borrow, download, or purchase other recordings from our catalog, please visit our website at rvml.org.
Good evening, everybody. Can you hear me well? I seem to hear my voice here and not over there. So. Okay. Bruce, can we have a little more volume? Or should I just speak louder? That's okay. Okay. So my name is Olivier, and I've been living for the past 20 years in the international intentional community of Auroville in South India. And it is from there that I have developed this interest in alternative economy. The presentation I will give you tonight is about the esoteric part of the global economy system that we have functioning now in the world. And the first part of my presentation will be about getting everybody on board to understand what are the principles that are functioning within and behind this global money system that we have, so that we have a better understanding as to what is changing, why it needs to change, and then towards the later part of the presentation, I'll be speaking about what I've called the rainbow economy, which is a concept of several different principles of economy that has come to me from the work that I have done and the living that I have gone through in the community of Auroville. I have been taking care of the cheese farm, the cheese factory of Auroville for the past 20 years, which is a commercial activity that has plunged me to that business world that I had not learned at school or in any other ways. And it was very interesting to learn that through the already special or different economy of an intentional community, especially since the mother, which is the founder of Auroville, had given very specific principle and concepts for the economy of Auroville. Now, what happened to me is that through that world of first learning the economics of this community, developing that commercial activity, participating in group discussions, I became aware that when people come together to discuss possible alternative economic solutions, they often come with a lot of enthusiasm, but they go back after a couple of hours, a couple of months, or a couple of years, completely distraught and despaired at the fact that nothing could come together. Lots of talks, lots of good ideas, but it doesn't seem to have a handshake. And what I observed in that process is that people tend to speak from different economic principles that do not function well together. They seem to clash. The principles are good on their own, but they cannot function on the same level. From this understanding, last year, in a deep meditation, I suddenly, in a flash, had an insight of 7 different kinds of economic principles that could support one another if they are understood for their own achievements and what they do well or not do so well. And instead of seeing them all on one plan wanting to function together, to see them on a scale of levels which are then taken as something that can be achieving something specific with that tool. And in that manner, they support one another. So I call that the rainbow economy. And in that process, I've written that book, The Future of Economy. And I'll be taking you today to that understanding. So the first thing I'd like to pass through is, and I will spend a good half of the presentation, is to talk about the economy that we have now, the financial global money system that has developed over the last 300 years very drastically, really in a logarithmic way, basically from after the monarchies fell down and the proper banks started to take over the financial system. So that is reflected into the history of the economy that I have there. And in order to understand that system, the first question I like to ask is, how is money created? How does it come in existence? Does anyone have an answer to that? What's the usual? It's credit, it's loan, yes, yes. So it's, yes, money is created out of debt. That's the entire money, the entire monetary mass that we have in the world is created out of debt. It is when somebody goes to a bank, a person, a corporation, a business, and makes a loan that the bank issues that money into circulation. That's the basic principle that keeps our monetary system flowing, which is a system based on scarcity. There is not enough money in store for everybody. Because what happens, can you please show us the sync thing, is that when somebody goes to borrow money out of a system that I will not enter tonight because it's a little technical, which is called fractional reserve. The banks are basically technically allowed to borrow from one another in order to always have sufficient fund to create when somebody wants a loan. They can technically make an entry in their computer system or books saying that they have loaned that much amount of money based on such and such assets that they have borrowed from somebody else, etc. And what is expected is that the person that borrows it then returns that amount of money within a particular time frame with an added part, which is called the interest. Yeah, could you go down to the things? So that component of interest is the whole financial system backbone. It shows that Can you come to the things? Yeah, there. So that's just the technical part of how banks get the money into a loan. So what happens in that debt system is that we have here the sinks. This is a tap, and the blue level is a water level. And this represents the bank, and this represents the community. So in the first stage, a community member comes up to the bank and wants a loan. And the bank, out of its rights to be a bank, writes up a check or makes a transfer, brings the money from its reserve and assets and collaterals and whatever they have, and loans an amount, which is the loan, into the community. The monetary mass in this community then increases. There is that much more money in the community. The next stage is that that person, that institution, returns the amount of the loan to the bank, and the money supply comes back to its initial level. But the part that has not been created by the bank is the interest, which the party has to find out by making profits out in the market and return that interest back to the bank. It's a fantastic system, except that it creates competition because somebody has got to lose in order for that person to bring back the interest into the bank. That's why we have bankruptcy. That's why we have people who are in the streets. That's why it's a money system that's based on scarcity and profits. That's the thing that it creates. So yes, that little drawing is just showing, I asked an artist to draw that, because then we have the little black angels of the bank up there that simply draws energy from people's work, is drawn out. Every time that a coin or a note or a transaction is made, a part of that coin goes back to the bank as the interest that is built into the price of the cost of goods. Now, this is further amplified when you understand the compound interest. Because when you look at a loaf of bread, the farmer that grew the wheat had to take a loan from the bank in order to invest whatever in pumps or whatever, his tractors or whatever. When he sells his wheat, he's going to calculate the price of the loan and the interest into the cost of the wheat. Then you're going to have a transporter that is taking this wheat to the thrashing mill. That truck had to be purchased most probably with a loan from the bank with the interest. So the cost of transportation is going to have a compound of the interest built into the transportation cost. The thrashing wheel, same system. Then it comes to the baker, same system, which comes that at the end, in the cost of a good, like a loaf of bread, a computer, the loan of a house, and the rent of a house, everything has a built-in compound interest built into the price. And somebody called Margaret Kennedy has calculated that in average, between 30 and 70% of the cost of a good or a service is built-in interest. Every time you pay something, every time money changes hand, between 30 and 70% of that money flies back to the bank, which makes it a system which is fantastic to constantly draw resources, money in such a sort, but resources, energy, from where there is the least to where there is the most, and keeps on concentrating resources, wealth, into the hands of a few, taking advantages of the mass. And that is why I see it as the most pernicious and wonderfully well-designed modern slavery system, where those who have little and have to borrow money to just buy a refrigerator or anything, those who have to make the most loans are taking the most advantage to those who have the most and can always loan more. And it's really a pyramidal system where on the very top you have just a very few people who manages the whole system. Now, in such a system, it is easy to understand that whatever best idea we have to save the environment or bring social ideas to a society, in a system that functions on such a principle, it is bound to fail. Because the system, and everybody uses it, everybody and everything uses money as a medium of exchanging energy, whatever good ideas are put out there are bound to fail because the system functions on the basis of profits. That's what it needs to function. And profits are there not to care about people or the environment. They are just looking at extracting the maximum into the least care from the environment at the least cost and exploiting to the maximum the human resource. And that is why jobs fly over, and every time there is a possibility to extract a natural resource at the least cost, it is done. So, so that's to close this chapter. This is to show how the speculative market is just shooting in a logarithmic way. The red portion here shows the speculative money. The speculative money is the money that is used to make more money. The purchase of market shares, the exchange of one currency against another one, all these mass transactions. So the full amount here shows the total transaction per day or per year here as it is on the graph. And this little tiny blue mark, which is at the bottom, shows the amount of money that is used for transaction of real goods and services. That is 2%. The speculative amount of money is 98, and that was in the year 2000. So by today, following that curve, you can just imagine with whatever you have seen on your computers in terms of trading that can happen, the sales that are there, the buying this stock, and everything that is now going to every person having a computer. You can just see how this is shooting up. And you can also understand how comes that the debt of America or the world, for that matter, just keeps on skyrocketing. Because what is important for the global financial system is simply to put more money into circulation to simply keep on creating more money. Evidently, it's a system that is not sustainable, because when you have a curve of that kind, at some point it goes wrong. And we have had several crashes. We know what it is. There are some people who have really studied the psychology of market booms and busts, how they function in the human psyche. I won't enter this field, which is very interesting because it's really something that is so core. Money is so subconscious to us. But
Olivier, can you cite a reference, perhaps?
yes, Bernard Lietard, which is a person that is very well known, living in Boulder, has written a wonderful book that is not published in American language. You'll have to purchase it in Japanese or German, or but it's not there in American language. Really goes wonderfully into the Freudian psychology and the archetypes and all that functions around the money economy and system. So
We've had him in town.
Okay.
Visiting.
Yeah, he's a person that has done a lot of work on this subject. Okay, now what I like to do is, once the picture of that system is established, is rather than to have a doom and gloom scenario of what can we do about it, and there is nothing. I like to ask myself, why is it that such a system is in place for our world, for humanity? And wanting to find the positive in it, and finding how is it that we can transmute that system, the best answer that I have had for myself is that in its development, humanity has had that design to populate the world, to go from, even if we take the history of humanity from 5,000 or 25,000 years ago, doesn't matter so much. But what we can see is that we have early civilization that spread out in the world and grew up, developed, multiplied, and populated more or less the entire globe wherever the climate was sufficiently adequate for the human species to thrive or survive. In that design, it seems to me that this system which occults the working out of humanity, of human people to develop, has worked well, because in the last 2,000 years, is that my mic? Or? Okay. Yes, well, it seems to be properly inside. Yes, it's this one. It's okay, I just twisted it a bit now. It seems to be better, yeah. So in that design where humanity came on this earth to populate and civilize and develop, that system seemed to have worked miracles, because in the last several hundred years, we have just developed so much of it, except that it was at the cost of probably human happiness or human care, the environment, and we have come today to see that, well, it's probably close to reaching the apex of the system. And the good news is that we may not have to keep much longer with that system. So what I like to do then is to present the alternatives and to come out of the us and them sort of consciousness, where we can take as individual the responsibility, the full responsibility of having that system. Somehow, somewhere along the way, we have released our responsibility to be aware of that system. And now we are becoming, we sort of remember how this functions, how the principle of this money system functions. We can understand it for ourselves, and we can look at what is it that we have as alternatives. So it's no need to place the responsibility to the few there on top of the pyramid, because they are still human people. If I would have the power to rule the world, I guess just like me, you would probably be very attracted to it in some levels. And certainly there are some who have jumped into it. And from the very top of the pyramid to a little lower, there is this principle at work of money power that affects the whole of humanity, brought us to the development that we have today, and to the fact that we are not going to last much longer with this principle. So in my search for the alternatives, I of course came across complementary currencies. I would like to know if somebody in this room has never heard of such a word, complementary currencies, or let systems, which, okay, so I have one person, which is basically a system of exchange where the credit is put in circulation out of a need for an exchange. It's a community like we would be together in this room, and everyone has skills, goods that needs to be exchanged. And when Pamela has some salads from her garden that I would need, I would simply have an account that goes in minus of a certain number of credits and goes to Pamela's account, which she can then use to get some other service or goods from somebody else. And with the credits that I have in minus, I will offer another service or good to this community, to some one of you, and get back my credits. This is called a complementary currency. It's one kind of complementary currency. And there are many designs of these principles that can be used in the world to achieve different possibilities. So when I got this concept of that I call the rainbow economy, it came to me as a parallel or as an understanding to the chakra system that relates to a holistic approach of the physical body, and has different kind of energies at different level of the being. And this economic system, or this economic concept, came to me with a relation to those levels. So that's why I called it the rainbow economy. It has 7 levels corresponding to the different chakras. And I will be now going quickly through these 7 levels, because I would like to leave a large part for question and answers here. So the first level, which is the root chakra, the physical level, is that global financial system, the physical level that we have in place that I just described now. That's the one that corresponds to our physical body, the basic, more dense energy. And it corresponds well to the state of disease that we have in the world. Our earth is sick. It is damaged, it is been abused, it is in a cancerous state, and a lot of that is reflected in our own physical bodies. We've never had such a powerful science that can heal so much, and at the same time, so much physical disease that still can't be cured. And so that's the first level, the root chakra, the global financial system that is there. The second level is the first level of a complementary currency system that corresponds to the Manipura chakra, the navel chakra, which is the chakra of the subtle energy, the one that is very close to the physical, but it is not in dense matter anymore. It is in subtle energies. And that is because, could you show us the blue, yeah, the one that was just after that? No, lower the blue. Yes, that one. So, in the essay I wrote, I describe this in the sense that when we take then the case of a community, it can be a small town, it can be an intentional community, we enter that community with the normal cash, national currency of that community, and we deposit it with the community financial system or bank that is in place. And that community will replicate, and those who know about complementary currency will replicate those deposit credits, it could be $100, into 100 credits on the community system. So the community system is simply a computerized system where you have a sort of account where it says that you have got 100 credits there based on the $100 that you have deposited with the bank of the community. Now those credits are equivalent to the $100, but they are not anymore the $100. They are the credits that are only usable within the economic system of the community. The people who offer their goods and services, whatever is there available in the shops, in the courses of the community. But something very important has happened in this operation, is that the $100 that has come into the bank of the community, as they accumulate, are being put in the bank or stored somewhere. And another 100 credits have been created on the internal financial system of the community. What happened is that from one credit, we have created 2 credits. That one is a complementary currency. This one is still the money that can be used for investment or making interest in the bank. But we have created something here out of nothing by having a simple system of that kind, and there are many communities in the world that function in that manner, like Damanhur in Italy, or okay, I don't have another example that just. Findhorn, I suspect Findhorn has a mutual credit system, not that kind of system. So in order to make the difference, that sort of complementary currency is called a fiat currency. It is a currency that is issued from a central authority and managed by the community. I don't want to go too much in details with that, but it is one of the possibility that a group of people, a community or a small town can put in place, and the time dollar is one of this system that function on that principle. People come in town and they buy the credit of the time dollar and the Ithaca hour. that is based on this principle. People come in town and they go to purchase by dropping $100 notes. They purchase the credits of the town. The Berkshire notes are also created on this principle. And what is important in this principle is that once you have community credits, it safeguards the value of the community. They cannot fly out anymore from the community. It's not money that is earned on the spot and is spent to buy something that is made thousands of kilometers away, imported from a different global market, that shifts the energy and the values of the community because there is no more work on the local market and the goods are too costly for the people to buy it that is coming from abroad. So a system like this safeguards, protects the local value of the community. The next level is, so that's the subtle level because it's so close to the global financial system that it's still on that subtle level of the Manipura chakra. The next level is when this complementary currency starts to be used. And I have equated this with our vital energy chakra, the one that really moves the energy around, that's projected. And that is when this currency starts circulating in the community. Because once it is put in this fishbowl of the village or the community, people start using it, and they can use it, of course, only to purchase what is locally produced or offered in terms of services. Please stop me if I get too fast or too unclear on some level. I'd like to go quickly to the 7 levels, and then we can have a more global view of that and come back to it if something is unclear. So the third level, the vital energetic level, is when this currency starts to move around. Because you can just have a deposit account where the money from outside comes into the community and is put on an account, and it's there. You know, you have created 2 kind of credits out of 1, but it just sits there. The third level is when it goes into motion. The credit of the community starts to be used and circulates around, dynamizes the goods, the people who are there, dynamizes the local economy. The fourth level, which is on the heart level, is a completely different principle of economy. It's usually referred to as the Ashram System, or the kibbutz system, or the monastic system. It is a system where there is basically, for the people involved in the community, no credits involved. There is no actual money. It is based on the principle where a community of people come together and they devote their time and energy to the highest good of the community, and all the energies, resources of that community is put together for everybody to benefit in an equal or more or less equal manner. There is no exchange, direct exchange between the participants. Everybody offers his time, energy, like the monks were making the cheese and making the wine and making the bread, and they were sharing all their resources amongst each other. In the kibbutz system, it's similar. You come and give all your time and energy to the kibbutz. You are fed, you have housing, your children are schooled by the community. And in an ashram, it's similar. You have people coming on the same principle. Now, this is actually the highest social economic system that we know of at the present time. In terms of bringing a collective together with the highest aim of offering freely the time and energy, it is a social system that has created a lot of beautiful experience for people, as they have the feeling that they can offer all their time and energy without having the idea of reward. They do not directly exchange something for something else. And that experience from reports from people who are living or have had this experience is actually a very uplifting experience as a social experiment. The fifth level, which is coming on the throat chakra, is the principle of mutual credit that I described a moment ago, is when you have, again, a community that comes together, but the credits are put in circulation out of nothing. By simply having somebody having to offer a service or a good and somebody wanting it, they decide upon the value of that good or service, and they decide that one person gets a minus into his record and the other one gets a plus. And the money is created, the money or that complementary currency, which is referred to as the mutual credit system, is created by the need of the moment, decided by the people who are needing it for the purpose of an exchange. And you have large systems involving many thousand people who are sometimes not even living together, because over the internet, when you exchange soft services, you can exchange credits of that kind that can be redeemed later on for another service. So you have thousands of these systems that have sprung up all around the globe, catering to different kind of services. It can be like internet services, or it can be in the local community to cater for food or for lodging or for all these things together. But it is a very potent alternative to a community that can organize itself and put in place such a system. They are readily available software downloadable for free on the internet that a community can just install on one computer. Then you have the members that registered, open an account on that system and start posting on a bulletin board, then offers and their requests, and transferring credits to one another's account. The web spirit that you have in this community is the bulletin board part of such a mutual credit system. And Sharon Miranda, who is looking after the system, is working on implementing now the Cyclos model, where the trading of the credits can then be associated to the offers. If I found now today somebody that has a room for rent and go there, will probably do the deal and pay in cash. When the mutual credit system is implemented, we can transfer credits that this person who will be renting me the room can be will be able to use for another service in that community. So that's the fifth level. And on the sixth, which is, so that's the throat chakra, and that refers usually to communication. And that system thrives on communication. It is a system that has been reported into really building community, because you meet people locally for the purpose of having an exchange that you would have normally not met. You would have gone to a store and just pay out of your credit card and it would have been done, or buy something on the internet. In this system, you meet a community fellow person that you found on the bulletin board that you have never seen, or that you may have crossed on the street but never met in the 20 years that you have been there in that community. And it builds community, it builds links, it builds that feeling that you are giving some energy to somebody who will be able to give it back in the locality. It is not an energy that is going to fly out. It is supporting the local energy, it is protecting the value of the community, and it allows for that communication. It expands and supports the communication. And that's why it's on the referring to the throat chakra, that is our tools to come in communication and talk around. The sixth level is what is normally referred to by the gift economy. The gift economy is, I think, a term that Bernard Lietaer coined, and it refers to the services that we constantly give one another without a thinking of asking something back. It's what we do for our families, for our close friends, the things that we freely extend as a help to somebody, and we don't ask for something immediately back. It is not valued in terms of credits or money. We may keep in mind that I have been a big help for that friend at some point, and later on I may expect that if I request that friend for a particular help, it may come back, but it is not valued. It is offered as a free gift at the time that it is given, and this is the 1,000 little links of energy that we keep within a family, within an extended family, with our close friends, but it is done usually with a person that we know. We don't offer a free service to somebody on the street, except if the guy has broken his car and we're going to tow him out. And anyway, we're going to remember that fellow. And later on, if we come across that person, there will be a sort of expectation for something back. But it is not valued. That is why it is called the gift economy. And it is huge. If you just think about the amount of gifts that are exchanged in the world, it is actually what makes the world go round. Because if there would be only the first level of economy, 3/4 of the population would not exist. So the gift economy is something intangible that is talked about there in the highest contemplation of economy energy, and it's not on the balance sheets, it's not scalable, it's only sensed. But it is very real. It is there and it acts all the time, and it is good for us to know that it exists as a support system. Because without friends, without somebody that can help us in times of needs, there would be a lot more hardship. We can be millionaires of having cash and all that. If we don't have people on which to rely in some situations, it's as much as being dead. People cannot live in isolations without falling deeply sick. So that level of economy is very powerful in everybody's life. Now the last level is relates to the Crown Chakra, which is the chakra that opens us to the cosmic realm, to the invisible, non-physical world where we exchange energy based on concept, on ideas, on receiving intuition, guidance, whatever we call the spiritual realm or world. And you'll tell me, what does that have to do on an economic system? Is because if you consider that in the life of a person, even if we are not very intuitive, if we are not very spiritual, we do get ideas, we do get information, we do get guidance of some sort. And generally, this guidance, when it is sufficiently listened to, indicates a way where our life purpose just gets much quicker, much faster to its aim. It allows us to not go into relationship that would be dreadful, avoid business association that would not turn out properly unless it is needed. And as such, if we take in consideration and work consciously with that system where we call for the guidance, it will allow us to make huge savings of money, of time, of energy on the other system that I just described. And as such, we can develop that tool, that connection with our cosmic guidance, the highest self that we have. And it's also very well known now in the world about the principle of the secret, or how we can put in motion, create what we want, attract the things we want. And that is done, of course, through the heart and our love and compassion and joy, but it acts also very much from the concept, the visions that we can put in motion and resonate to attract what we need for our life to come, and sometimes, very often, not at a cost or without any payment. So with that level, I have put in front of you the rainbow economy, which gives, I believe, that is why I took the trouble to write this book, a larger spectrum to communities, to people, to humanity, a better understanding of different tools that achieves different things in our lives. And when we are conscious of these tools, and it doesn't mean that this is exhaustive. There might be others, there might be variants, there might be complements of that. But it came to me as that relation to the holistic energy system that we function with in this body. And it gives a good holistic economic system for us to be able to maybe stop spending money to get friends or to buy certain things. And when we can do that locally or get it on a gift exchange or attract it from our upper visions and understanding. So I think I've made it just in time. And we'll have a break, and I'll give you the second part of this presentation to ask questions on whichever subject I have been touching from the beginning. 5 minutes? Okay. What kind of example?
Of information that
Okay.
profits on
Cell phones.
cell phones.
We know very well that those cell phone technology is dreadful. And within 10 or 15, 20 years, we're going to have a number of brain tumors, hearing loss, but the industry is not ready yet with the next generation of technology. So we don't hear about it. You can maybe hear about it in alternative media or on the internet or things that have been measured, but the cell phone technology is great. It's like the next tool, and it explodes everywhere. And they are working now. It is worked upon, not they. It is worked upon to find the medical answer for this particular kind of brain tumors that are going to come up, and hearing loss and all sort of damages in the body from the frequency of the antennas, people who live close to the antennas, people who have been having that device on their ears or in their pocket for years. Even kids have that now from a very early age on. And when the medical answer to that will be there, and the industry will have surely done enough damage in the society to have sufficient profits coming back from treating this disease, the next technology will come in. We'll have all to throw away our cell phones and buy the next one because the scare will be so huge that it's already, again, going to make huge profits for somebody. So that's an example of how it works, and you can just replicate it in all sorts of things. And it goes from global warming to just anything. Yes?
I have read, it was in a Time magazine some years ago, I still have a copy, called The Future of Money.
Yes.
And one of the designs for American money, anyway, is to go from cash to electronic credits, so that there is no more material money at all. It's all credits transferred by electronic means, and maybe a credit or maybe a debit card only, or a chip. You probably know about this.
Well, it's already in place, but there is very little currency, physical currency left. And it's simply because it's a lot more easy to handle. It costs less. The banks are always trying to find systems that will cost them less. And it's much more easy to track electronic money than actual physical cash. There is a whole section of the Hetzel Institute in God knows where, somewhere in America, there, where they have an entire department that is studying the disappearing money. There is apparently into our global financial system money that is just sucked out of the system, and nobody knows exactly where it goes and what is happening to it, for what purpose it goes. So so they have a department that is studying that. But the entire system is the secret government or whatever is there, functions well with the piece that is called the mafia. There is an entire business world there that works out of the law system and is working hand in hand with the governments. There are links there, and when the government cannot act in a certain way officially, it acts unofficially behind the door, under the market. And the banking system is just covering the whole thing. It just keeps on benefiting from whether it's legal or not legal, just benefits from the whole thing. And one interesting piece of information is the one around the Reserve Bank, what is called the Reserve Bank. The Reserve Bank is usually perceived as being a government institution. It is not. It is a private cartel of the powerful people handling the financial system that at the beginning of this century came together on some island called the Jekyll Island in a secret meeting, and they requested government to allow them to be the reference agency to decide how much money and in which way can be put in circulation. So it is not the government that is issuing the money. It is the private banking financial system that is deciding that.
There's an excellent video here called The Money Makers in the library.
Okay.
It's a two-part video.
Yeah. And even on the internet, if you Google the creatures of the Jekyll Island, you have a whole book and video about how this has come about.
But it's interesting that, I mean, there's this minority of people now realizing, but the system is so big.
Yeah, it's global.
They,
It has.
they don't really care even if you know it right now because it's so powerful. You know, that-
Yes.
We're all.
That it's like, so what, you know? So
Yes.
So what I'm interested more in looking at how we can.
Sorry, Jim. I'll come to you afterwards.
Oh,
It's okay.
Yeah. So these new systems that you were describing,
Mhm.
obviously, my question is this: I mean, there are problems with those systems. They're not ideal systems. You said there are people. I mean, I've been in kibbutz. It's definitely not an ideal system.
Okay.
A lot of problems and a lot of collapse of the system. as well.
Yes. Yes.
And in fact, all those systems that you described at some stage worked and some stage collapsed
Mhm.
on themselves as
Okay.
well, right?
Yes.
So what I'm interested in is in you talking about both sides. How do you use them in a productive way without them, actually doing a disservice to the community?
Well, this system collapsed because we are still at the first generation of their design. The kibbutz, the monastic, not. And there are problems with that, but that is why I spoke about these 7 principles, is that they achieve great wonders in the range for which they are made for. Yeah? That is why the 7 systems can be implemented in one community and be used by all the people. One person can use 7 systems, or 3 of them, or 2 of them, or 1 of them, and they can be implemented all into one community and just achieve good things at a particular range of what they are good for. That is what the concept of the rainbow economy is good, because it puts in perspective the different principles and makes clear what they are good for. Yeah? If you want to go in the mountains, you will use a 4-wheel drive with big wheels. If you want to go on the highway, you better have a sport car. So it's just design, it's systems of economy that will clash on their principle if you try to have them together. But once we understand that each one is doing something specific, then they support one another. That's why I took the trouble to write that. Right. Yeah? Now, what you are addressing is very valid, but we are still at the, maybe not the prehistory, but at the very infancy of the design of these systems. Right. And the complementary currency system have often collapsed because they have not been designed with sufficient consciousness built into them. Now, there are people who are writing books about that. We are designing the 2nd generation of this system, which have taken in consideration those crashes, those fall away, those collapses, have studied them and found out what was working, what was not working, and are now in the 2nd stage of designs. And the one that we are implementing in Oroville is based on that knowledge. And there is a lot more awareness. A person which is called Thomas Greco, for people who want to have reference, is a person that is here in the States. He has finished writing his book last week in San Francisco. And it is specifically around this second generation of design. What has to be built in? What has to be aware in those systems that makes them live in the long run, prosper, and build in? It's not just like, oh, we got all correct our money, we start swapping credits, and after a year or two, like, it's worth nothing, and people don't use it anymore. And it has happened. It has happened because it's a little more complex than what it just appears at the beginning. And there is a lot of human psychology involved. Right. And so we're learning about these things. There are many people who are studying this system, learning about them, and designing them better and better. It's like the further upgrade of that software version. No? So we are upgrading the versions. Yeah.
So
I had Jim first, and then
in the second system, you're not actually buying the credits. You're not actually buying the credits from the community, right? You're actually depositing money in a community bank.
Yes.
And then the bank is creating credits, so you have both the credit and your money still.
No. You could say that you are buying the credits. As an individual, you come to a particular, you go to an amusement park, yeah? Okay, and you buy your tickets at the entry. So the cashier is keeping your cash, and it has created your thing, your tickets, your coupons.
You buy the credits from one central bank or something
Yes.
in the community.
Yes.
And they give you the credits, and then they take that money, they invest it or do it.
Yes, yes, yes. Yeah.
If they were taking the investment, like in that model, because this lower block was banking investment.
Yes.
There was no definition of where that money was going, but if the money were going to build hard infrastructure,
Yes.
roads,
Yes.
buildings,
Yes.
bridges, and then the other exchanges could take place on community level.
Yes.
that would make sense.
Yes. But that is a bit too simplistic as a definition, because why is complementary currency called complementary? Because it can only be seen as a complement at this stage to the normal cash. No community at this point in time is able to live in autarky, you say, or on its own. Yeah?
They have
And
to take legal tender, and they're forced to. If somebody offers to buy something with the Federal Reserve, they have to take it by law.
who is the they that you are referring?
Somebody comes into a community and
Yes.
they want to buy a service with cash.
Yes.
You have to accept it by law, or legal tender laws.
Yes, except if the community has decided that you would have to buy credits in order to get those services.
I don't know. I don't know if what if the person didn't want to buy?
Well, if you go to an amusement park and you don't leave your cash at the entrance and you go with your cash, they will send you back to the cashier to buy your tickets. So it's just an agreement of the community.
It's local.
Well, it would depend on if a community's rules could override federal law. Because in this case, the federal law requires you to take Federal Reserve notes.
Yeah.
It depends if the person to whom you want to buy something is a registered business that is functioning into the conventional economy as well. In this manner, you have two currencies that can work both together, and this is most usually the case. Yeah? But in Oroville, for instance, there are services and business where you can pay only with the community credits. But usually, those services or businesses or production units function only with the members, not with the outside public.
Yeah. So it's more complicated. So what you're saying now, the financial system also has to be intertwined with the legal system.
Yeah. Yes. That is what is happening in most cases.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't have one without the other, because
Yes.
otherwise the federal laws will just override.
Absolutely. And you even here in America, the America is very well advanced on this system. You have the IRTA, which don't ask me what it stands for, but it's a body of people who came together to find out the actual legal rules in each state as to how communities can apply to the legal system and put in place these alternative currencies under which rules and what they apply for. Yeah. And what I wanted to address is that, of course, the financial system of the community that has received the cash can use that cash to build roads or do things for the community. But what is more important is that the issue, what is happening there is that in this fiat currency then, it is not the mutual credit system where people exchange themselves. It is the community that decides that, okay, we have got $1 million deposit of dollars. We can create, therefore, 1 million credits in our community. We can put in circulation an X amount of credits into the community to build a road. And whoever wants to participate in the community, use his truck, bring his own work, take the gravel from his backyard, and provide something for that particular project, gets paid into the community currencies, which then can be spent at the baker, at the groceries, at the school, etc. And in this manner, the currency is issued in the community for a particular project of interest to the community. And you may have heard in Germany of the experiment of Wörgl, which was after the Second World War, where there was a total collapse of the economy, where little villages have come back together and reshot into just a few years their economies by putting in place this sort of system.
Well, Cuba did the same thing.
Cuba did, yes.
In a big way, because they had no choice.
Yeah.
They were cut off from the world.
Argentina saved itself with this kind of system when it collapsed.
There's one underlying principle that causes all these different kinds of currency systems to fail, and that is that you can't have a fiat currency.
You cannot have?
A fiat currency, if you do, that currency system will at some point always fail. What most people don't know is there's a currency that's been in existence for more than 800 years, and continues to be in existence. It's called the dinar, or dinar, D-I-N-A-R, which is used in the Muslim world. And there's silver dinars and there's gold dinars. And what the value of a silver dinar is the amount of silver that it takes to buy 2 chickens. And there's no inflation in that money. It's been around forever and ever. But as soon as the Western interests move into an Islamic country, the first thing they do is they force that country to stop using the dinar in trade because it's a stable currency and it can't be manipulated and you can't play the banking thing with it. And so if any currency you have, if it's based on something of value that cannot be manipulated, it will be a workable currency. And as soon as that fiat principle comes in, you're going to find somebody intelligent enough to game the system and they will destroy the currency. And it's happened thousands of times in the history of human race.
They don't believe in interest either, do they?
No, they do not do compound interest. And this is the other key thing that really wipes things, that will cause problems, is because when you compound interest, you end up paying interest on the interest that you owed. And this is one of the major threats of Iran to the Western world, is Iran promotes a financial system where compound interest is not allowed. You can charge interest, and if they don't pay the interest, you don't add it to the principal and then charge interest on the interest, because this is the thing that's used to put third world countries in debt, where the countries in Central and South America, they borrowed like $20 billion, they paid back $25 billion, and they still owe $30 billion because we compounded the interest on them. So compound interest is a second step with a fiat currency. If you got a fiat currency and compound interest, you can own anybody who will work with that system. It's a universal principle. It's always worked like that. But any place the currency's been put into place where it can't be fiat, where there's actually metal or something of consistent value behind it, that currency will remain stable unless someone comes in, like a conqueror or an invader or somebody, and forces that currency out of use.
I had this lady first. What I can add to that is that in the complementary currency circles, they are discussing of the basket of goods. You have a universal currency valued based not on one item, but on a basket of goods that could be chickens, like the value of 2 O's egg, or that much mineral of gold, but at least have a number of goods that may fluctuate over time, but much less than if it is just one item that can be played with. So that's one of the answer that is there. Bernard Litter is working on that since many years, and is trying to interest the business world into it without too much success so far.
The United States,
Please.
the first 100 years of our existence, we had no inflation, zero inflation. And after the Federal Reserve Bank was created and went to fiat currency, that's when all the inflation started.
Funny money.
Yeah.
I lived in a community once that had a complementary currency.
Mhm.
And the problem that happened was all the money ended up at the bakery. And then the bakery got tired of having all this money and they couldn't spend it. So it kept happening over and over.
Yeah, I've been managing.
That joins back to the question that this person, what's your name? Vitaly had, is that this is one of the problems that the first generation of system have, is that they have not sufficiently consciously designed the system so that the accumulation of credits ends up into one particular system. So the generation of systems that are coming now builds in more awareness in the system, so that people who tend to go into minus and go all the bread and buy all the bread from the baker are asked to put something back into the system. They are forced to put back something in the system.
I don't
And
understand.
what happens is that why the baker gets all the credits is because everybody else draws a minus and leaves their credits with the baker. And then the baker is tired of having 10 massages per week,
Yeah.
because that's what everybody is offering, right? But all the massage people have great minuses and keep on eating bread, right? So these systems are designed now by asking that you cannot go to more than a certain minus after a certain time, and you are asked to put back something into the system to offer something, and if you cannot offer something that somebody else wants, you'll be asked to credit normal cash into the system that can then pay the baker who has too much and redeem his excess of credits, or some sort of principle that will alleviate this accumulation of credits from one to the other.
Okay, but if you just have a free market and this credits are just floating around,
Yeah.
and then everybody wants to buy bread again, how do
Yeah.
you stop them from doing that?
Just with what I described. You have various principles that can be built in the system to avoid this over-accumulation of something. One of them could be also that the baker accepts only a certain number of credits.
Yeah.
And when he reaches that limit, his bread is not available for credits anymore. You have to pay by cash.
Yeah.
There are various ways to answer these kind of problems in the first generations of system. Yeah, that's what I was. I can go into details if you want, but I'm saying this is the problems that are not answered by having too many complementary currencies that are facing these kind of problems. And it's more acute in some systems and less in others. It depends on the health of the system. It depends if there is a good administrator that will look and see, wow, the baker has so much credits, let's do something about it. And so, yeah, and he will go around and the baker will put what he needs, and before he gets that, he will not sell any more breads, or etc. Yeah?
Can I?
Who ahead?
Go ahead.
Now, in Moraville, the credits used in Moraville, obviously they're based on the Indian rupee, but do they have any relationship to gold or silver ounces, troy ounces?
What, the rupee?
No, the credits that are in
No,
use
no, it's based on the rupee.
on the rupee.
Yeah, it's based on the rupee, which has its relation to the dollar and to the rest of the economy. But in Oroville, we have the 7 systems in place now. So you have that one which is used by the guests, the visitors, which is the deposit money, get the credits and go around. And there is also the mutual credit system where you have people that can come and offer a workshop, a service, a good, and get credits that they can only repay within the community. So both kind of complementary currencies are there in place.
Do you find that there's any problems with, so there's like, you know, eggs and bread and massage and these hard good and services, and
Mm.
then other things like expertise, like administration, or certain professional, like how those things get valued in different systems, maybe doctors or lawyers, or but I think the administration piece is sort of that middle piece that I was really curious about.
Well, you have to have clear in your mind the two basic families of complementary currencies. The mutual credit system, which is great for that because it is you and me who decide of the value of the good or service we exchange. It can be different tomorrow. It can be different whether we have many therapists in this town or only one. It's still the offer and demand that values that. It can be changing the next year, but it is there at this particular time. And if you come to me and you say, can you reduce your price because I'm in a hardship now, I may or may not agree to that. But it is you and me who decide, and this is the mutual credit system. Into the fiat currency, there tends to be a more collective agreement of what is charged there. And in that system, it is more difficult to have an delinked value equivalence because it tends to equate with the larger economy value of that good or service. And that is why both, again, achieve different things, are functioning on a different principle, and are better for some things or less, or have disadvantages for others.
In your book, do you describe different instances where it's being used in our
Yes, I give a bit of example. I don't go too much into details. I still remain in, how you call this, in theory. But of course, I describe more of that principles, yes. Can I have Vitaly?
What I was going to ask you is about bringing, you said, basically, from what I understand, the benefit of these systems is to localize the economy.
Which system are you talking about?
All of the
Yes.
alternative currencies, and
Yes.
is to localize the economy, so you don't have to bring in from across the world oranges and.
It's not to localize the economy. It is to protect the local values, so that the local production and the value of the people living there is primed to what is coming from outside. If nobody produces or gives that service in the local community, there's nothing wrong to go and get it from outside. But if it is there inside and it is there outside at a cheaper rate because of the intricacies and distortion of the global economic that deflates the prices, and that is why we buy it from there, then the local currency or the local economy will tend to protect from that distortion of the. So the the purpose of a local economy is to take care of the people who are living there and their interest, their value. If a community values particularly to have flower gardens and lush green spaces, then they will decide that their currency will be spent for that value. And a square meter of flower garden will have a high price in that because it is valued by the people. It is decided for that. Another community may decide that inner self-discovery workshops might be more important than to have flower gardens. I'm just giving examples. But it is the people in that particular part of the world, they may decide that water is the most important thing because that's what they need. So the local currency economy will be designed to protect that, and so forth.
One time, all countries were local economies because in most countries in the world it is illegal to hold currency from any other country. And India's been like that even in 70 or 95 when I was.
Could you please repeat? I was somewhere else when you were giving your.
When you go into India, do you still have to exchange all your dollars for rupees, or can you take dollars into India?
You can take dollars to India, but you'll have to exchange them to pay.
Yeah, you have to exchange them.
Yeah. Well, no, you can go to a shop and they will exchange at the bank rate, which is a bit disfavorable to you.
Like,
Yeah.
when I was in Korea in the 80s, it was illegal to buy something with dollars in a Korean store.
Yes, that is true. That is true because in the 80s, India was still on the communist system, which was much more controlling. But after Rajiv Gandhi passed away, the whole system went to democratization and open market. So it's not like that anymore.
But it's interesting, the trend is going the opposite way in the major economy. You know, the currency, with the euro uniting and all the trade blocks
Yes.
becoming ones, it's going exactly the opposite. It's delocalized economy, right? It's a world economy. on the major economic system
Yes.
is going exactly the opposite way.
Well, not exactly. What has happened with the euro was an attempt of the European countries to counteract the power that the dollar was taking. Because otherwise there would have been one hegemony of a currency that would have ruled the whole world. And the Europe bloc worked onto at least having two major currencies because they were seeing the collapse of the Japan yen being linked to the dollar. And that linking of the European currency was an attempt to counterbalance the all-in-one power of the dollar.
Well, that's interesting because that same book was talking about how eventually the idea is to combine the euro and the dollar together into one world currency.
Wow, that's a far-out idea. I've not read about that.
Yeah, and in fact, they're already working on what they call Canada, Mexico, and the United States have one currency, America, and then America will combine with euro to form one world currency.
Well, eventually, yes. You will have only one corporation in the world that does everything for us. Yes, that's the idea. Yes.
Yeah, but they're building the platform already.
Yeah. No more competition. We can decide of the prices. Yes, but I mean, it will collapse before they get there. So, to my perception.
Well, how long do you think it will take for the dollar to collapse?
No idea. It's happening now.
It's
It's happening now, and again, as I don't like to buy into the fear system, because basically what I wish to give as a message tonight is that there is no need to get into the us and them scenario where we have to fight against something out there. It is our system. We have all been part of it, and it has worked its wonders up to now, and it's over. The best way to not keep on going onto that system is to work out the fear base that we have in ourselves that keeps on feeding the system. The system is based on fear. We do buy, spend based on our fears of what we read, hear, see. Scarcity, fear of scarcity, yes. And that is what the system strives on. Now, when we know that the information that is out there is not the truth, it is only a partial reflection of a manipulated truth root that is designed in order to sustain that system, we can start taking our information from a different source that is there giving the good news. We are over with that system. The only thing we can pray for is that it collapses slowly and not like blam. Okay? And it's a system that nobody is actually governing it. It's a system that is that has a life of its own.
Yeah.
Yes? So they can all die and it will still keep on working because it works, it feeds upon itself. So it's not going to disappear. What is happening is that there is, how you call this? It's not real, it's a fictive scarcity that is created, an artificial scarcity that is created based on the fear that plays on the fear of everybody that says the environment is collapsing, we have no more water, we have no more food, we have no more petrol, and then the price goes up and somebody is making more profit. Yeah? So far, we still have water, we still have petrol, we still have of everything. So it's no need to go out there and stock and buy as much as possible. It's a system. We know, I don't have to talk about that. We know how the system is working. Consumerism. Yeah? Spending the money and then have everybody work as much as possible for the system. It's a cancerous system. It just keeps on growing upon itself until, yeah? And that's what's happening. We're like that. But we're not yet there. So rather than to buy onto that fear mechanism, let's take back into what we can see and live without that fear system. We don't have to work so much in order to buy so much, in order to protect so much or accumulate so much or protect our life and future so much about all that fear that's generated by the system. And in that manner, we can go into alternative systems of economy and not feed the system that is there that can then have a soft landing. Yeah, because it will spread around civilization and humanity. There is already a lot of talk about ecology, about sustainability, buy less, consume less, save, and all that. It's growing, it's expanding. We are already onto a learning curve of landing that system softly. And it doesn't have to disappear, because for some things, it's still good. Competition is not bad by itself. For some purposes, it's good. It's good to have two companies competing to put a good product out there. So, except that the problem is that when you have a toolbox with only one screwdriver and you want to build a house, you're in trouble. You're going to have doors that are not going to close too well. Yeah? So with the rainbow economy, I suggest a toolbox that has several tools to achieve different things. So the first one is still there. The screwdriver is good by itself, except that if you want to hammer a nail with a screwdriver, good luck. That's the image. Yeah? So right now we have that global financial system that does 99.999% of everything we want to do in life. The minute you want to do something, the first thing that comes in mind, you need money. Now you don't need money. You need that thing. You need that thing in order to be happy, to have a better experience of life. And money doesn't create that. It helps sometimes, but that's the frame of mind that we have been growing with. And that's not helpful anymore. So the day is the fear that we keep on working with and acting on into our system. And it works well on all levels, even from the wanting to save the environment now. And it's feeding an industry, the solar panels, the everything, and it's not bad. It's not bad in itself. It's not the case to throw the baby with the bathwater. It's like there is a discrimination to have with that. Yes?
What we have is because the economy, the dominant economy, is putting very extreme, making something like solar panels extremely expensive. So
Yes.
there's a certain cost prohibitive.
Yes.
In this I don't live here, but in this community, I see that this community is small enough. Like you said, you have this web spirit. Is that what you refer to?
Yes.
Web spirit. There's a vehicle set up already for that commerce.
Mm-hmm.
For one of those levels.
Yes. Yes.
And so, just getting. Are you all doing this already? So this is it. You're just seeing how to put that.
Yeah. In Auroville, the 7 levels are in place. That is where I have been able to recognize them
Here.
from. Not here, in Auroville. It's a community in South India. But it's also not absolutely necessary to have all the 7 levels into one community. It's to have 1 or 2. It's good to know that we know as human beings that certain things are better achieved by certain principles of economy. And that community can then decide whether it wants to emphasize that principle or that principle. That's all. And you can have an ashram or a kibbutz in the city, and those people who want to have that economic experience can go and live there for some time, or can go there on Wednesdays to do some work in that principle and have some of their needs met with that principle, and then use another one for other things to do.
But in order to set up an initial model in a place, for example, this size, is it helpful to sort of have a semi-closed environment where you're setting that up and saying, here we're going to do this internally, in this limited area, and then expand out and say, and then target like, okay, we're going to.
Yes and no. If you want to set up a kibbutz, you have to work on a membership basis. You can't have guests working on that basis unless they pass through the gate where they are given the principle under which this is. Yeah. So then you have to have a sort of closed thing. But if you work on a mutual credit system, it's the same. Somebody has to open an account on that system to function on that principle. But the gift economy, for instance, can have anybody walking in town and offer a gift. So it takes a little while to understand the principles upon which each system functions. And so some of them need to have a sort of close, protected agreements. Some others are more open.
See what works.
Yes. That's for the community to decide what is answering best their needs and values.
I mean, I spend a lot of my time studying like 10 years of the economy, having an MBA and everything. So a lot of effort at the moment is put into studying the standard economy. If we could put the same amount of effort and money
Exactly.
to educate people about this other economies, we would have it in 2 or 3 years.
In no
all
time.
around the world.
When Argentina collapsed a few years ago and was not bought back like Mexico was, in matters of days, people found out that they could exchange their salads and their chickens with coupons and things because the money was not there.
Right.
And of course, because they were not ready, there was a lot of people that normal human nature have been profiteering or taking advantage of certain things. And again, those systems collapsed or met difficulties. But basically, a lot of more people would have died from starving or from if they would not have exchanged in that. And overnight, hundreds of systems sprung up all over the country with those notes that were just printed quickly and started to exchange for the community to trade. Yeah. So once they are consciously designed and properly put in place and studied, even if they are latent in the sense that only 100 people are using them, well, they are there. And once there is a real need, like for instance where it has worked extremely well is in communities where jobs were scarce, where the jobs flew away and people were getting a pension or a little help or something, but it was not enough. So they could have some cash and still do services with one another for the things. People went back to grow salads in their backyards and could exchange those for something else. The carpenter went back into doing things and fixing things for one another. And those systems, for the services, thrived well on those job loss communities when they have been put in place. And in Curitiba, the best example is the town itself, because it's not only always a grassroots movement. You have in Curitiba, the town itself had a garbage problem and a transportation problem.
Where?
In Curitiba in Brazil.
Okay,
Yeah,
Curitiba.
in Curitiba.
Yes.
So they started to distribute credit coupons to the homeless to collect the garbage in the streets, with which they could buy tickets for the transportation that was not used because too much cars were used and they had the transportation system that was fledgling and unused. In a few years, they were talked about having designed the most advanced modern transportation system. They had no garbage in streets anymore and no homeless. So it's just for the community to find the need of the community that can match the demand of the society and bring up a currency that links these two needs. And in that, you have an exchange loop that starts to be put in place and feed one another and then expand into other services and goods because more things come into the play and poof, you have got something working. Yeah? In Japan, the government has put an entire healthcare system in place where young people can take care of elderlies or people in need in their town, gain credits that they can then send to their elderly parents in other parts of the town for them to use them to have a younger person to take care of them. And in that system, you have a whole alternative healthcare system that is in place in Japan. And it's the government that put that in place. Yes.
Because there is a problem because the elderly in Japan are living so much longer, and people are stressed to take care of their parents.
Yes.
They want someone else to do it, but there isn't nursing homes in Japan the way there are here.
Mm-hmm.
So they talk about a double collapse
Yes.
sometimes. The elderly can't do it, and the children are so stressed out they can't do
Yes,
it.
yes. And generally speaking, because the money is scarce, it's never enough for addressing this sort of social issues. So a complementary currency just brings in there the flow of energy that are stuck in their corners, not able to feed one another because the money is not there. You have great ideas. What do? We write a project, we ask for funding, we are hoping for something to come. So it comes, but these are the mere crumbs of the Yumi cash cake that is out there, making more money, exploiting more people, destroying more environment. That's where the money is made. But for the social address, once it is sufficiently damaged and it doesn't work anymore, we move out somewhere else. We go to China or India. But with a complementary currency, a properly responsible government can then see the needs and put in place the mean of exchange that will get those needs flow and meet one another in the feedback loop. And that's coming to awareness. In Europe, you have the VIR system that is at least 50-year-old now, where you have thousands of small and medium-scale industries that have what is called a commercial barter system, which means that they have agreed to buy and sell amongst these corporations, not corporations, because they don't accept big sharks. They work with medium and small scale industries, and then the computer industry is going to fix the computer of that industry, and they get their painting job done by that. And they use a complementary currency among themselves, having this sort of computerized account, and on their transaction, they pay tax to the government because it's commercial exchanges, but they issue their own currency. Yeah? So they have an agreement that the government is respecting that. It is not wanting to fight against it because it sees the value of it. It's simply helping the small-scale industries to have an extra cash flow for what they need to run that is not part of the financial global market, which keeps on fluctuating depending on whether the investors have gotten up on the left or right foot, and depending on what is the latest news about the price of this or that. And they are able to then protect themselves in this manner and still pay tax to the government because they're making business. So,
eliminates the interest cost.
sorry?
It eliminates the interest cost.
It limits the interest
What
cost.
is it called, that system?
VIR, Wirtschaft.
Is it a German system?
It's a German system that was originated after the war and is still in place. And right now you have entire companies who are selling commercial barter systems where they come in as part of their business and offers you to have a link with thousands of other industries in the country to link and exchange with these credits. There is an Australian company now that has moved into India and is selling these services. And then you apply, you buy your membership, and you be part of this huge pool of services that you can offer with exchanges from your own services. So there is a lot happening out there. It's not.
Is all this up on a website? All these examples? I've never run across this on the internet before.
Which example you are talking about?
Like Japan, any of these alternative currency situations that you just described.
Somebody
I spent a
studied
lot of time on the internet, and I have never ever ran across this information.
Well,
Just gave
you
me
have
10 minutes.
you have one website which is called reinventingmoney.com, which has a lot of the links that I have been talking about here, which has PowerPoints that you can download and present, a lot of the links to these different principles. But I don't know, actually, I've never typed complementary currency because you probably have so much stuff that's coming down. But in my book, I have the link to that. Urea Kipu is the name of the Japanese system. And in one of my presentations, I had a Japanese person asking me, and then I Googled it, and immediately I had articles that was describing the system and coming about it. VIR, W-I-R, will get you directly to that system. It's in my book too. There are several things there that are very interesting to see. The money as debt. If you Google money as debt, you get a video, a little 45 minutes cartoon video, which is really easy to watch and downloads 90% of the money system into. It's great for children even. I mean, you have to understand what is there because there is a lot of information, but it's done with little drawings which are really funny to watch. And the only thing that's missing there is the link to the compound interest. But everything is there, else is there. It doesn't give much solutions, but to understand the principle in a little more details that I have been giving tonight, it's a great fun video to watch with friends. And
Do you know about the website rents.com, rense.com?
no, I don't think so.
He's actually a local man, but he has a website where he collects news from all around the world and puts it up. But he also has a talk show on every night.
Okay.
You might be interested in interviewing him because on his website you get exposure to about 2 or 3 million people at once time.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And this information needs to get out. This is really critical because I've been watching the currency system collapse,
Mm-hmm.
and we need something like this to replace it, to support it, to slow down this
Mhm.
collapse.
Yeah.
Because and he would be interested in talking to you, I can guarantee you.
Okay, well, if you want to link me with him, this is my sidekick. I work more as a healer, as an energy worker. I am a dancer and working with my body. So this has come as an addition, which I take on, but I find it much more useful to work on to the fear limitation from an inner point of view. So I've had the opportunity to come up with that here, and I offer that as a principle, but to disengage from the fear mechanism upon which we act and build all our life, I feel even more potent than just know about the money system. But basically what we hold as a responsibility as a humanity or for humanity is simply to know about that system, what it does, how it functions, and just spread the word, and not bring it to the dooms and gloom sayer of we're going to collapse and it's going, okay, it may happen, but you know there are so many more options, and it will happen if we buy into the fear thing. And finally, somebody will always make a profit out of it. So.
You know, you talk about Argentina and how they survived that, and I've talked to numerous people over the years. They wondered how people in Argentina, some of them didn't have jobs for years, and how did everybody survive, you know, get through it. And that information has never made it into this country, into the consciousness of this country. It's just totally gone. There's possible to do that.
Yeah.
And
Well, when there is a collapse of the normal economy, it's very disturbing for the normal economy. What do? They come in with the World Bank loans and sell their things there, make sure that they will manage to get back some people on board to grab as much as possible out of the country again. So a total collapse is never too good for the profits because you are losing resources you cannot exploit anymore. Africa is a lost country. There is not even enough health in the children to put them on child labor. So the only thing that the economy, this global economy, has managed to found is to use Africa now as guinea pigs for testing medicines. They go in there and they distribute medicines that have not been approved to test them on large population to see how children react to this or that, and they offer bubble gum or little plastic toys to receive injections that are their monitors and give a little bit of food, and usually not even food. What doesn't sell here, the refuse of the Coca-Cola and what. And that's how Africa is being used. The World Bank, there is a fantastic book which is called Confession of an Economic Hitman.
Right.
Ever heard of that book? Yeah. That tells you how the system functions into grabbing as much of the resources as we have. So actually I was saying this for saying something else and I forgot. But anyway, yeah.
There's also an excellent video about Cuba. It's right here in the Metaphysical Library.
Okay.
How Cuba survived the oil crisis, and it's excellent. What was the other one that you said on the internet? There was a video you can watch about money system.
Yeah, money as debt.
No, another one that's kind of about the World Bank and available on the internet.
Oh yes, the creatures of the Jekyll Island.
The creatures of the Jekyll Island.
Yeah, it just talks about how the Reserve Bank has been come to birth itself.
Fed was created in 1913.
Yeah,
It's the creature from Jekyll Island.
yeah, from Jekyll Island.
I wanted to offer I just wanted to chime in on the whole fear thing. I mean, I spent a couple of years Catherine Austin Fitz is a wonderful, teaches a lot of things, and like just found another, so, yeah, they're good for information, like you said, just go in and get to know, get what you need to know, and you get out.
Yeah.
Because they can really suck you into these rabbit holes, it's totally
Of fear, who's that?
in fear. Well, any of the, we're talking about media, right? All the media controls this and that. We live in the alternative media that's trying to teach us about this and that. It's still like so loaded with fear. And I mean, I read this stuff and go like, how can people write this and get away with still walking down the street? So on some level, they are serving the dominant paradigm of the structure. And I think if it's allowed or whatever, because of the fear and the place that it puts us, the static place of unable to move, and it makes us really ineffective as people. And I just came across a woman's website. It's called Casaubon's book, Causoban. Casaubon is a character. Her name is Sharon A. I can't remember how to spell her last name, but Casaubon's book, and she is very positive with it. She's very linked into all of the issues, and she presents on solutions and positives and really highlights what we can do. And if you go to the Unmoney conference, which is held last year, there's still
Money conference.
or was it Convergence?
It was, well, there were several things. The one you're talking about is the Unmoney Conference.
Where?
Just on the internet.
On the internet.
And on the high-level gurus of this complementary currency, the talks that are going around is how to merge the several thousand different local systems into a larger system of exchange, so that the localities can start exchanging things among themselves on an alternative system. So there are various meta systems that are talked about, and the principle upon which they could be built and how they would function. And so
Does Oroville link into other alternative systems of exchange, like with Finhorn and other communities?
not on the complementary currency level. There are exchanges that happen on many levels. There are many networks that are happening. And we had first implement the complementary exchange system of South Africa. There's a guy that's called Tim Jenkins that has this freely available downloadable system for communities. You just load the software on your computer, and you can have then member open an account and start exchanging. And then you have an exchange rate between the different communities that is part of this system. So you have about 60 or 70 different communities that are using this software, and they can exchange among one another. But they are not always very practically organized, because if you have one in Adelaide and another one in Washington, it doesn't work very well. But sometimes people travel and can have a house sitting or a au pair sort of facility, and then exchanging something else with the other system. And the way to look at it is that as you have a person that is functioning within a system of other members and work upon the reference of its peers, there is usually something that works very well as to a review system of somebody that doesn't do a good trade, starts to have bad reviews or good reviews. So they look at having networks of system upon systems, means having a system in a little town that functions upon a network of a region, that functions upon the network of the country, and the country system logs into the international system. And based on the reference of each system, you have a gateway where one system doesn't exchange from one individual to another individual, but from one local community credit to another local community credit. So there is a tank of credits that works to that particular community as one entity. It's not just one individual, but it's one locality that starts trading with another locality. And it's still one individual that has a service with another individual. But it's a layer, it's a hierarchy. It's not a hierarchy, but it's a network system that works based on peer review. And another thing that I would like to mention is that there is a lot of thought and consciousness going into social software design, because economy always functions hand in hand with governance. Money is about what to spend for what. And in order for that to happen, there is decision to be taken. And the decision-making system is very important into linking a viable, healthy economy. So what is looked at now is that a different system of governance where the community itself, with the help of internet tools, can come together and make decisions which are holding. In the sense, they talk about using the Wikipedia principle to make decisions, where there is no governor, there is nobody that controls it. So an issue, so in a few words, what I can say about that is that an issue is pointed out by the community. We have a problem with children at school getting sick with a something. So that is brought into a Wikipedia page, and people start to put information about that and discuss what is there. And the Wikipedia, what happens is that people don't bring opinions against another opinion, but start talking about what transpires from the discussion of the information that comes accumulating there. Which means after a certain number of discussion days or months, there are possible options that start to emerge, because somebody will always say, well, it seems to me that from hearing this and this and this and that could be a valid option, and people will keep on adding to that. So rather than to have opinions being clashing against one another, there are then possibilities that emerge from a most likely to a less likely best solution. And then with a voting system online where we don't vote yes or no for a particular solution, there is maybe 5, 6, 20 different solutions that are there proposed, and people vote to the most likely one, to the less likely one. And then you have an emergence of solutions, not one, solutions that are coming up from a collective intelligence that starts to emerge from that. And so there are people who are working on designing those next social softwares, and the abilities that these tools will allow community to self-govern themselves and not have a representative into a government there that will only represent the views of one or two or its own, but to really have a collective intelligence that starts emerging into a decision-making process. So there is a lot of energy that goes around the social software thing. And there is another tool that is there that I forgot the name of, that with the amount of information that we have at our fingertips and that is keeping on downloading, we never know what to read. We have only this much available time to read. And by peer review again, people start rating what they found most relevant into a forest of articles and writing about. And then you have a rating that brings out the most relevant articles first and the other one later on. And that brings the relevance of articles to a particular subject to come prominent and keep the scrap out of what you have to read through. And in this manner, paragraphs can be extracted and things, and you have to read only things that makes it very quick for you to understand the issue about this and that, if you want to know about it. Because you can keep going about it as far and as deep as you want, but you have a sort of grading, scaling of the relevance of the information that come up with. So all these things are surfacing from us learning to use the tools that we are playing with, and designing them into third and fourth generation and versions of what is available for us to design our collective. That is what we are becoming. We want to have community. We want to have time to connect with one another and not be machines running on the rat race. And social software can be a step towards that to happen, because decision making is definitely an important part of community building. All right, I think, I don't know the time, we can maybe close. I have time. If you still want to ask questions, I can be there, but I don't know what are the rules of the metaphysical libraries. And
Question.
Yes.
Can you cite can you cite the examples of what credits, the form that credits take? Is it based on hourly wage, on services per hour, on the total job? Can you maybe give some examples of what you have seen that the credits, the form they take?
Well, it's again a community decision.
Okay.
So there is first an understanding to have about what the credit is, what it is supposed to achieve, what value it is supposed to support, and what it doesn't, what it shouldn't do. So the two major family of credits are either based on time, means the amount of work and time base, or the national currency. They both have advantages and inconvenience, and there are many branching out and other subcategories of that. The equivalence to the national currency is a practical system. Everybody knows how much an hour of doctor is costing. So it's easy to equate this with the normal value of the national system. In case of a large inflation, that system is drawn into the devaluation of the national currency. Yeah, that's the downturn of it. As long as the national currency is more or less manageable, that's working better. The time currency is good because you can say that an hour of work is an hour of work regardless of the national currency rate, or a basket of goods from this community. There is a community that decided that one credit was the price of a chicken egg, organic, raised with this and that parameters. They have a whole list of what the egg is supposed to be, and that kind of format egg is the value of the currency, what this person described as the value of the silver or a mineral. Okay? Yes. And so the time factor is good for that purpose, but it is much more difficult for people to then evaluate a particular service, because the service of a doctor may not be equating the service of earth mover or what. Yeah. So then there is a lot of joking around it, but the value of the currency is then more stable in case of devaluation of the system, of the national system. There is a lot to study and to know when you want to design a system for your community.
How much is your book?
I'm asking a sliding scale of $25 to $50. Yeah, and I have a source version also that I'm willing to send you for a contribution.
You
Whatever.
accept eggs.
And not exactly, no. But for the time that I'm here, if there is a surface that I would be happy to, like for instance, I may need 5 days of living somewhere from the 1st to the 5th of August. So if you have a place available at your place, I would be willing to offer you one of my books. Yes. Okay, thank you very much.
RVML Resource Center is a volunteer-operated federal 501c3 tax-exempt nonprofit organization. RVML is dedicated to providing easy access to a comprehensive collection of information on a variety of metaphysical, spiritual, and personal development subjects. RVML accepts and appreciates all donations. Material and monetary contributions are fully tax-deductible. This recording is not copyrighted, and permission is granted to broadcast, exhibit, or duplicate all or part of this program for non-commercial educational purposes. This live presentation was organized and presented by the Rogue Valley Metaphysical Library and Event Center. For more information, please visit rvml.org.